Yeah, I mean, the only reason I was late is because my dog was eating a stick of butter off the counter. So I was trying to clean that mess up.
That's homely. I can sit like Tiff's got a kid on each hip, and the other ones are running around in the backyard, and the dog ate a stick of butter.
Yep.
That's a nice segue for the interval.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about it. Roll the credits. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA, two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I am your host, Christopher Sellers.
I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm Brody Ipox.
And we, collectively together, are your professional misfits, where we riff on the B-sides of professional life. And welcome back, misfits. It's season 4. It's episode 5. We're in the sweet spot. It's the interval. So no planned topics, just a little riff on whatever's going on in life. Brody's dog ate a stick of butter. So we'll deep dive into that to find, to discover all the juicy value insights that we can. Or hey, we've just gone through Easter, bro. So how was Easter for you and the fam? Did you have bunnies? Did you have Easter egg hunts and things?
Yeah, Easter was good. Easter is it's a non-negotiable. Every year we go do the same thing as a family, and it's this kind of, I was telling you, it's this theme park slash amusement park thing. It's it's
So
wonderful. I love being there, but it's
what's it called? Because so if any locals in Portland have been, they can kind of shout out in the comments and tell us their experiences.
yeah, it's the Enchanted Forest. Everybody local will know it. Like, you've
Right,
been there
right,
at
right,
least once, and your family either goes every year or you've been there once.
right.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that sums that park up. And yeah, it was the same thing. Kids had a good time. Easter Bunny drops off baskets. We search for eggs in the
Great.
front yard in the living room, and yeah, it went off without a hitch. But the older boys were at the other parents. That was kind of a rough one this year because
Mhm.
like collectively, all three of the older boys were off at the other parents.
Oh, okay.
Generally, we have like one set or the other. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And so to just have Jax and Mia, it was not lonely, but it was just different. It was quiet, and it was
Still
yeah,
pretty wholesome. Family
yeah, oh,
trip to the
absolutely, yeah.
amusement park on Easter. Is
Mhm.
it is it big for you guys? I was going to ask, is it big in the States? Because we might get into that a little bit later, but
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'd say the commercial side of it, 100%. Because
mm,
if we went to it's like this little lodge kind of thing here locally where, people get together and they run
mm,
events and, that kind of thing. And they did an Easter egg hunt for a bunch of people. They have it at the fairgrounds. It's all over the place that there's giant Easter egg hunts that people can go and participate in. And yeah, I'd say it's big, like big enough that even this time of year, you'll see bikers with their helmets and bunny ears on their helmets zipping around
that's
fucking Portland and
that's
shit.
cool. That's
It
what
it actually it is actually pretty cool.
there was a couple that were bouncing around the hood, pun intended, and it was yeah, big pink bunny ears, and there was a pair of
Yep.
them, and I was like, nice
Yep.
commitment. I really like that. That's sweet.
Yeah, so I mean, what is it for you guys? I don't want to sound ignorant, but I feel like it's just such a Christian holiday
Oh yeah, it's look,
that
it's same but different. Like we're
mm,
in Oz, we're not so fundamentalist about anything. You know what I mean? So it's we we look forward to a 4-day weekend, right? And
yeah.
if you happen to hit a church on that 4-day weekend, great. You know,
Yeah, good on
but
you. You're
yeah,
right.
right. But also seasonally, it's nice for us because it's sort of tipping into autumn now for us. So it's starting to cool down a little bit. It's a little bit less intense than summer. But the weather was gorgeous this
S-
year,
So
so it was.
bizarre. Easter in autumn. That
Eh,
just doesn't. Okay.
um, Yeah, but as a family, like growing up, it was always a bit of a big family thing because my dad's family, he had all like the brothers and the sisters and the step brothers and the sisters, and so there was hordes of cousins, and so we'd go up to Nan's, and that was big Easter lunch. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that was always, I remember that fondly because they lived by the lake as well, and we us us kids basically owned the park down the road from Nan's house with the jetty, and yeah, really. So you've got your main jetty that goes all the way out and across that big L shape, and then sort of
Mhm.
to make the U shape to come back, there was like a single beam that you could walk, and that was like the test for all the sellers' kids. It's like if you want to cut it, you got to walk the beam without sort of falling in, and then later, as you're sort of hitting 16, 17, 18, even in our early 20s, anytime you brought a date or a potential boyfriend or the girlfriend, like there's only like down the
You
park.
gotta you gotta cross the beam.
Not only do you have to meet all the family for like the Easter crucible, but now you have to walk the beam at the jetty. So I remember that with fondness. But now that we're all adults and there's no family, what was my? It was chilled here in the city. Sydney's kind of interesting. I think a lot of major cities have this. Is like a lot of people leave for the long weekend. They take the kids and they go
Mhm.
elsewhere. So it was pretty chill. Gorgeous weather, pretty chill. Spent a lot of time down in the park, so that was a bit zen. Had a bad date with someone on the Sunday evening, so we might talk about that. We might talk about that. I don't
Oh,
know.
on Easter Sunday.
On Easter Sunday, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. All right. All right.
yeah.
We'll definitely
Yeah,
be talking about that.
definitely about that. But before we move into that, because I didn't get any chocolate this year because like I'd just be buying myself chocolate eggs and normally it's cheap
Right.
shitty chocolate. But I am a sucker for a hot cross bun. Do you have hot cross buns in the States?
I mean, I've heard the like child song, like children's song,
Yeah.
but I don't know what they are. Yeah, it's not. I mean, if
Rudy.
it is popular enough that it's here in the States as a thing, like I haven't been exposed to
I
it.
am shocked. It is
Uncultured swine. That's what it
for
is.
real. I thought that, wow, okay. All right. Yeah, no, hot cross buns, big time. Um,
So what is
big
it?
time. Okay, so it's like the think of a little fruit bun, and it's got obviously a cross on top that's made out of icing sugar. And normally, what you do is you split it in
Already
half,
sold.
and right, and then and you split it in half, and then you toast it, and then you lather it with butter, and then it's delicious in the mornings with a little coffee, a little tea, a little something something. And so I just am a slut for these in every cafe that I go to. So it's like espresso hot cross bun for about 2 weeks.
Danishes are way more popular.
Mm. Yeah,
Way, way more here, anyways.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is
I
because it's a seasonal thing. Like you get them for
okay,
about 2 or 3 weeks, and then that's it.
Then I
You know
need
what
to
I mean?
pay attention. I need to pay attention and follow and see
Maybe.
if maybe it's just something just right over
Mm.
my head. Misfits, answer in the comments. Am I just fucking retarded? Like,
Who knows?
I
But every who knows? No, I was going to say, but every Australian knows they're a thing, and I'm pretty sure like all the English know they're a thing as well.
yeah,
But outside of,
yeah.
I don't know about a European. I don't know about a European Misfits, to be honest. There might be something else, but
Hmm, hmm,
unless you're not, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? There you go. Hot cross buns.
yeah.
Would you? They're delicious. Let me tell you. Anyway,
They sound amazing. Yeah.
they are. It's like fruit toast. It's like, but it's it's delicious. So that was my Easter. There's a lot of coffee, sitting in cafes, one bad date, and an Easter long weekend. The end.
That doesn't sound bad. That doesn't sound bad.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you. So it's funny because I almost feel like with kids I don't have the option to not do the
Mm,
family route kind of thing.
mm.
You know what I mean? Like I just don't because I mean I do, but in my mind the kids would be missing out. And realistically, if I don't give a shit about holidays, I should at least give a shit about it for
Do
them.
it for the kids, bruh.
Yeah, I got it. So that's kind of like my sentiment.
Mm.
Is it nice, or was there like a element of like homesickness, or
Not
I
this year.
wish.
Well, no,
But
it's
you've been with the fam quite a bit in the last couple months.
yeah, and normally, and yeah, honestly, normally most Easters, because my folks are about 2 hours north, so normally I'll jump on a train and go up and spend the
Mhm.
day and come back, and sort of just do the touch base with family thing. But I assumed
Do they still walk
'cause-
you, make you walk the beam?
no, well, they now live. Funnily enough, they live on the other side of the lake. So we can. It's great. But yeah, no family trip this year, and because I assumed that they'd be on tour. Basically, I don't know if I've covered this before, but my parents have basically taken up croquet in their retirement to a fairly high level, as a
You
matter of
have, but
fact.
it hasn't gotten to this detail. We just know that
Okay,
they play. We just know that
right.
they
No, no,
play
no.
and that they take
So
it serious.
they do. My mum is. I think my mum is actually on the New South Wales state squad at the moment. Yeah. So that's cool because yeah, right. Round of
Yeah.
applause. And
Yeah.
often she'll be down to sort of train with the team and whatnot. So she'll be in Sydney, and I get to catch up with her now and then. But now it's her and Glenn, and
Mhm.
then mum's sister and mum's sister's partner, and they've all taken it up, and so they all go to the tournaments like
That's fucking
ar-
cool.
around the country, and they clean up, bro. So it's like, oh, your father won his division and I mine, and then we played the doubles, and then da. So they've got more of a social life than I do. But I think it's
Are they winning
lovely.
money?
It's sort of for the love of the game at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
So
No,
and
totally
the
curious. Totally curious.
yeah, and the whole social experience, because they got more friends, and they're training daily. You
Well,
know.
this is funny because I do want to ask you about this, because we're talking about little differences
Mm.
in America and Australia and
Okay.
Easter, that
Okay.
kind of thing. With that sounds healthy to me, right? Like, it's for the
Yes.
love of the game, right? And when it becomes beyond the love of the game, that's when, to me, it's like, why are you doing it, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
why would we be invested in watching, kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
I'm not one for the whole sports thing. Sorry, Misfits. I love you to death. It's just not me. Um, so I'm curious, because here, I mean, seriously, it could be any fucking sport, any
Right.
sport. I okay, funny story. I was part of a extreme sport that was coming out here in the States, not very big. I was actually one of the first professional athletes for it. I had like a built machine that I was riding on. It's drift striking. So
Okay. Yeah.
it's
Okay. Okay.
it's adult big wheels,
Niche,
and
bro. Niche. Yeah.
so niche. So niche. So it's like, as soon as I started doing that, it was, the conversations were money, and it was like, I did that because I loved it. It wasn't
Right.
because it was about money. And then I look at a couple friends now that disc golf is kind of becoming a big
Right. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
They go to tournaments, and I watch them win money. Like, and like, not you're getting fucking paid an NBA salary, but
Covers
like,
costs. Yeah.
right, like, it covers the trip, the very minimum, and sometimes much more. And I'm like, holy shit, like,
Mm.
what is that? Why you're doing it? Is that why? Do you go to the tournaments to win the money? Do you go because it's social and competitive? Like, and when is that lost? When it is about the money? Like,
Mm-hmm.
just curiosity, because the way that you describe your parents' kind of circuit, it just sounds wholesome. That's like the theme for this episode, is wholesomeness.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sounds wholesome. It really does.
Well, I think it's also. I mean, they're in their 60s, pushing 70s. That's
Right,
the other
right,
thing. If you
right.
were 20s taking up something new and excelled at it, it might be a different conversation. But I mean, uh,
True,
yeah.
true.
I don't know if mum, because I think she's sort of on the bench for the state squad at the moment. So she's in, but if she became one of like the key players or whatever, I've got no idea whether they'd like cover costs, for instance,
Hmm.
if they're
Hmm.
traveling,
I
what
could
have you.
imagine. I could imagine.
Yeah. But
Cool,
but look,
cool,
yeah,
mom.
they're loving it, and it's great. And I'm really happy for them as well, especially for my mum, who's always been a bit of a wallflower. And she used to Yeah, she's always been a bit of a wallflower. She used to play a lot of sport when we were younger, and golf, which is probably why she's been so quick to pick up croquet. There's a lot of transferable skills there.
Right.
And so it's nice to see her sort of bloom into her own and have her own little social life and excel at something. And when she's not training, she's also teaching beginners and stuff. So that's really cool. And she really enjoys it, which is great. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy for her.
Yeah, I mean, for the misfits at home, can you explain what croquet is? Because I don't think a lot of people know. I'm going to be honest, because I just told this story the other day about croquet, and they thought it was bocce. Do you know what bocce is? Where your
bocce.
Yeah, where you're hand tossing the ball and trying to.
Yeah, no.
That's what I was like. That is not.
No, the best way to explain it, I think, to people who don't know, is if you've ever watched Alice in Wonderland, when Alice goes to meet the Queen of Hearts, what they're playing with the flamingos and all the little men bent over in hoops, that's croquet. So you've got like a mallet, you've got little balls, about the size of bocce balls, but they're wooden, and you've got hoops laid out on a lawn, in a strategic pattern. And your idea is to knock your ball through all of the hoops and to get back to the end before like your opponent does. And there's rules and all this other stuff that's thrown into it. Some, if you were an aficionado, they like to say that croquet is, 3D golf plus chess, because strategy. I'm like, oh, fucking, it's a bit hardcore. but hey, it's for those who play. That's where it's at.
Yep. Fair. Cool. Thank you.
How did we get there? Easter. Oh no, that's right. Because I was going to go up for Easter, and I assumed they were. Yeah, but they weren't, and they were just chilling at home. So that was the end. I didn't go anywhere, and I was a bad son for Easter. But I called.
All right.
What's on your list?
The conversation we had yesterday really triggered that train of thought for me. And I titled our episode "The Indie Dilemma," and I kind of wanted to touch on that for a little bit. I really think there's a lot of substance in kind of dissecting that in this format for the Misfits and for people at home for any application. I mean, it doesn't have to be a podcast. I mean, it can be whatever you're pursuing.
Do you want to talk about that first, or do you want to talk about dates first?
No, let's talk about your date first, because we're perfect timing that this is right where the Misfits are sinking in.
Yeah.
Let's put you on blast. Let's go.
And otherwise we'll forget about it later, and then everyone will be like, no, wait, fucking, All right. All right, so here we go, Misfits. And all right, so matched with over the Easter long weekend, matched with a girl on an app. She ended up messaging me. We had a little bit of convo. So first hurdle passed. Like, you can have a decent conversation on an app. Win. And I said, look, it's Easter long weekend. If you're free, thought we could catch up, hang out, because there's not a lot going on. And she's like, yeah, sure, I'm free like Sunday or Monday. I'm like, cool, why don't we do Sunday? Because I knew it was Easter Sunday, and there's more likely to be something open and available than Easter Monday. I said, leave it with me, I'll come back to you tomorrow. Came back to her the next day and said, it's a little bit tricky, but I've sort of narrowed it down. How do you feel about dumplings? Because I got a great dumpling guy around the corner. And she's like, oh, look, dumplings are great. Or how do you feel about maybe just catching up? Because she was, I'll preface this now, she was staying down in Bondi. Bondi Beach, Australia. I'll get to that as well.
How far is that from you?
It's from me, it's probably, if I had my motorbike, it'd be less than 10 minutes. Unfortunately, Bondi is one of those places where there's two buses in. There's two roads in and two roads out. So the traffic is a fucking nightmare. And so it takes at least a solid half hour, 45 from where I am to get down to where I need to go, which is always painful. And of course, the buses are always jammed with tourists because everyone is going and coming from Bondi fucking Beach. So look, I don't. This is turning into a whole other rant.
It sounds like you love this place.
So, well, this is a whole subculture thing, and anyone that's in Sydney, even if you've heard of Sydney, the first place you've heard of is Bondi Beach, right?
Okay.
Bondi, no, it's Bondi. It's Aboriginal for, I think, crashing waves. I should look that up, but I should know. Anyway, so and here's the other thing as well. Like she's American, Brody. She's American.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to account for your entire race of people.
Is this vacational American or on a visa?
Well,
or...
here's the thing, right? Because her profile and little convo and whatever, I might have mentioned like how long have you been in Oz, and she said like a couple of years or whatever.
Interesting.
And made sort of a joke about looking for a husband and blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh, it's great to have clear goals. So it's you sort of get the impression that okay, you've been here long term, you're looking for something committed. Okay, cool, sort of same page. So I head on down to Bondi. That's right. So she said, how about we chill out on the park and whatever. I said, cool. Actually, yeah, a little sunset, Bondi sunset. Be quite nice. How about I meet you at 6 here, Bondi Beach. Cool, done, great, fantastic. See you then. Booked. So Sunday, 6 p.m, Bondi Beach. Catch the bus, go down. Sitting on a park bench at about 5:26. Sent her a little message saying, I'm here, chilling on a park bench. 6 o'clock. No one shows up. 5 past. 10 past. No one shows up. I'm like, I'm giving you 5 more minutes and I'm leaving. I actually messaged Marie. So for those of you who are here on season 3, my French friend Marie, because I'd caught up with her that morning, funnily enough, and said, I think I've been stood up. And she's like, oh no, are you at Bondi now? And I am in the midst, Misfits, of like taking a selfie of me sitting on a park bench in Bondi, having been stood up, right when this chick shows up at 6:15.
American
so, and she's so says at 6:15, and then she sort of has a bit of a giggle, and she's like, "Oh, did I ruin your selfie?" And I said, "Well, funnily enough, I was just messaging a friend saying I think I'd been stood up." Nothing. I got no apology, no acknowledgement, nothing. Just sort of like
dead silence.
Just no response. And I'm like, okay.
Red flag number 1 is
that'd be red flag. That'd be red flag number 2 because like
okay, touche.
You're already late.
And I was just thinking if there's an excusable thing, but if there's not even a fucking response, then you're right. It granted 2. You just got 2 red flags.
And if I was going to be a bitch, as sort of like, and I can tell you pretty much just rolled off the couch and like threw on black and black, put your hair up in a bun, and like rolled down to the beach. I'm pretty sure. So okay, like least amount of effort, and you're late. So. But I'm like, okay, take a breath, like give us some space. Let's here to meet people, put yourself out there. Do you want to have a seat? Sits down on the park bench. We start chatting about whatever. Turns out he's stroke number 5. She's in marketing, Brody.
Of course she is. What does she market?
Shoes. Very particular brand of skate shoe, which I've actually never heard of. I could probably pick the logo if I saw it now, but I've never heard of it. And then it's chit chat, something how long you've been out here and all the rest of it, and then it turns out she's only in Oz for like the next 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, that's a short amount of time to find a husband, and she's like, oh yeah, well. And I'm like, okay, then what happens, about April 20th? She's like, oh, then I go back home to the States because like, I can't stay any longer and blah, 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 blah. And then my next trip is South Africa. So I'm like, all right, oh, okay. All right. So right about 10 minutes in, I'm like, why am I here?
Because she was trying to sign you up, my friend. She probably had the fucking marriage papers in whatever purse she had.
Or she just wanted something casual. That was the other thing that occurred to me. And no.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's rough. That's rough on so many levels. I mean, okay. Was the banter when she got there, was it bad or what?
Right, here we go, B. So here we go. So the reason why this date sucked in particular is we got there at 6. Let's say we were there for about a bit over an hour watching the sun go down and chit-chatting. So for the length of an hour of sitting on a park bench overlooking the east coast of Australia, she didn't ask me one question. Not one. Not, what do you do? What are you into? What was this on your profile? Mentioned a couple of things. And it was funny. And you know how when you have those sort of quiet lulls in a conversation where you're just sort of taking in the people around you and the view and whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually sort of letting it hang because I'm like, I want to see if you ask anything, make some sort of effort, show any sort of interest. Nope. Okay.
Did it feel like disinterest?
It's
because there's a difference between disinterest and fucking being socially retarded. I mean,
well,
sorry for my language, but seriously,
I can't testify to that. All I can testify to is not one question, because it occurred to me about 20 minutes, half an hour in, that like I'm sort of asking and driving and just sort of exploring, who are you and where you're at and what are you into, and none of it's sort of coming back the other way, and so it's one of those things you
how
sort
did
of
it end. I mean,
fuck.
How do you part ways on that shit?
Right. So thank God the sun went down, and and it was starting to get a little bit chilly, and baby only had like the tank top on, and so I think it was some sort of excuse around that, and I went, yeah, cool, all right, yeah, great, I'll at least walk you up the hill because I know where you're walking across the road. Thanks. And then by the time I was on the bus on the way home, I'd unmatched her. Like, it was just like such a fucking waste of time. But I treated myself to a burger. So there you go. That was the highlight of my Easter, was the burger after this date with an American.
Tasted better than the conversation. Hey, come on now. We have great conversations.
Are all Americans like this? Are all American women like this? Are all American marketers like this? No, I joke.
Well, it's funny because I'm curious because I know I know you have a little bit higher standard for appearance, and not in the way that I think people would construe that, where I'm talking like you're shallow. That's not what I'm saying. What I mean is, in my mind, Chris likes effort. Chris likes effort.
Yeah, that's fair.
So to me, it's funny because in America specifically, I mean, effort is putting the hair up, putting the sweatshirt on, and putting leggings on and going out.
Is it though?
First
date. Mid-30s, first date.
I don't know out of that experience, but I'm gonna say just walking around. Yeah, dude. Yeah, bro. Yeah. It's rare. Okay. It's not the, at least where I'm at. And even when I go into Portland, it's not like it's not like you're looking at every woman and they've spent 2 hours in the mirror.
No. And I wasn't even expecting that either. Like, I wasn't, but it's again, let's be clear. It's not one thing. It's like a whole bunch of little things that add up.
Right.
And at the end of it, you kind of go, there's thanks.
Yeah.
Nice sunset. Thanks. Yeah. Move on. So that's that.
I'm convinced she had marriage papers, and she's just country hopping until someone says
that was whiplash. That was 1,000% whiplash. Like, you're telling, sort of signaling to someone that you're looking for something serious, and then you show up and you're only in the country for 3 more weeks. Like, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sucky date for sure. For sure.
I can just cross all Americans off my list. Or actually, this will make you giggle, because she's from California. She's from Cali. She's basically from like a little town outside of Anaheim. So
she's bro, dude, stop.
Here we go. East Coast v West Coast, baby. Here we go.
No, man, that's fucking a Disneyland shit. You just fucking bro, not. I'm sorry.
Hey, hey.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure how many that
This
come out
is
of that
this is what
area
you're
would be
missing
much
out on.
different.
You know, this is what you're missing in those loving, committed relationships, and you too, Charms, my friend Charms. I know you're listening. Like back home, the husband and the kids. You know, this is what the sexy, exciting single life is like.
Yeah, I'll
Right?
take the stick of butter over that. I'm going to be honest. I'll take this. I'll take the stick of butter. Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. There you go. There's the date gossip. So what was on your list? What was on your list? We're talking about the indie
Yeah.
theater
Yeah.
analogy.
The indie dilemma.
Break it down. Break it down for the Misfits who haven't heard the background.
No, okay. Well, I want you to break down the analogy, but I'll say this. Look, the analogy that Chris is about to make between two kind of spheres of representation it's potently accurate, and I think it can be taken one of two ways. It can be a negative thing, or it can be a way out. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for this kind of little segment here. And yeah, please, just the analogy, because you fucking.
I think I can give the analogy, but can you give me some specific context so I know exactly what we're talking about?
We were talking about social media, and you were telling me that right now it feels like indie production,
Oh,
and
right. Yeah.
and it was completely valid and fair. So I kind of want to leave it at that. If you can take it and go from there.
Yeah. So this ties into the conversation we had, episode 2, Misfits, with Passion, with Linda Nichols Gidley, a little bit
Yes,
like that. And she was talking about shows that she'd done, and I caught up. She was talking about shows that she'd done, and basically like lost money on, and you question like, why did we do this show? You know what I mean? What sort of value do you get out of it when you spend all this time and energy and money, and other people's time and energy and money, and don't have a lot to show for it? And funnily enough, I caught up with Linda probably about a few days later, had coffee, and we could sort of reminisce and talk about all the industry things and everything else. And it's interesting to hear her behind the scenes commentary about politics and effort and the warped reality of diversity and inclusion in even the arts space, and all this sort of stuff, and it being running parallel. Like these themes run parallel to like a lot of corporate and a lot of the stuff that we talked about. And I think when we were talking about marketing and social media yesterday, because for the Misfits at home, Brody and I had pre-production chats on Monday, and I was basically venting my frustration yet again on, where's all the 100 million likes and why aren't we viral and shit like that, and Brody was kind of talking me down off a cliff. But it felt like the same feeling where you can invest a ton of time and energy into this show, and you can walk on and do it every night and present it with best foot forward and integrity and really want it to mean something. But if there's no one in the audience, you sort of shrug and go, what's the fucking point? And for another analogy, if you were to substitute likes and comments for applause and reviews, you start to fall into that trap. And any artist of any medium will know that trap, because if you start to play for that, you really lose your way and what it means for you and why you stepped into this in the first place. At the same time, you need like some form of validation.
Right.
And I think despite what the philosophers say, despite what all the fucking LinkedIn thought leading influencers say about how it's really got to come from yourself. Yep, 90% of it can. That other 10% has got to come from someone and something else. My rationale is if you 100% believed in yourself and everything that you could do, you're blind to the world around you, you're blind to your actual ability, and you're more likely a narcissist because you're flawless, right? You can do no wrong. I'm absolutely confident in what I can do and how I can get there. That's there you go. There's a spicy hot take. Whereas if you're 90% confident in who you are and what you can deliver and what you've been through, but you've still got that 10% of maybe, don't know, can I? It's going to be expensive. What's on the other end of it? I'm unsure. And you're always going to be working through that 10%. Now, the lesson, I think, is to remember not to let that 10% hold you down. Right, that shouldn't overshadow your 90% of confidence and experience and belief, which unfortunately is the common person in the common role in the common world. I would say, fear of rejection or risk or whatever else is that 10% that scares a lot of people out of anything. Here's going to be a great fucking analogy. Get ready. Let that 10% of doubt be the bar that you raise yourself up on. So you've actually got to grab it and work to lift yourself up and over it, to leverage yourself over that. And guess what? Then there's another 10%, but let that be the healthy growth. So it's a very long-winded analogy, but what I was saying to Brody yesterday is like, at the moment where we're trudging through for this podcast feels like fucking indie theater. Except indie theater runs for 6 weeks and is done. And I can have my midlife crisis at the end of 6 weeks. This podcast has been a year, baby. And at times, and this week is one of those times where you go, what's the validation? Who's the validation? Where's the validation? So there's my rant.
No, that's perfect. And I just want to, before I go into my side of it, I want to ask you a question. Why do you think it is that indie is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, less successful than mainstream film? In your mind, no. And just with that, with indie, why?
If you frame it like that, I'll disagree, because it's sort of like a survivorship bias thing of like, you see all the things that make it, but you don't recognize all the things that don't make it, and we love, and audiences and people in general love an underdog story. We love the came from zero budget, came from a story, like a random story, came from actors we've never heard of and fucking killed it. We love those artists. You know what I mean? At the same time, take a film like Madam Web.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. Massive budget, international launch, backed by Marvel, tanked, deserved to tank. Take the modern Lord of the Rings remake, all this sort of shit. So budget and money and production doesn't always go with quality. Mm-hmm. Likewise, just because you're an indie little something with a story to tell doesn't actually mean you're any good at what you're doing. Just because you picked up a guitar and you can play 4 chords doesn't make you Dylan. So we like to cherry pick.
Okay,
we like to cherry pick.
That's fair.
But it's so you can sort of suspend the idea of like, I'm going to be like podcast, for instance. I'm going to be Rogan overnight. Bang. Yep. No, thank you. But in order to the one thing I did say to Brody is like, look, the one thing I am proud of and do stand by is every episode that we've turned out. I think it's incredible work. I think it's work that will remain relevant for quite a while. Proud of the production, proud of the way that we laid these things out. And that's probably why it's frustrating when you're delivering a good show and you're working with someone who's also doing the work, and you've got a few key people around you who are like, this is the shit. This is the conversation we need to be had. Yeah. My initial impulse is like, where the fuck is the audience? Like, where's the applause? Where's the paycheck? Where's this and that?
Right. Yeah. So where I was going to go with that is like kind of the way that I look at that, and that was really well put. You kind of have to take the comparison away from that kind of view, because like you said, it is so cherry picked that it's not accurate. But what I would say is the view that people do get right from indie is exactly like you talked about: low budget, underdog story, bunch of people, film festival kind of shit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That's what in that that perspective people are looking at. Now, why I think in my own mind's eye that falls down a ton of the time, and you just said it, is because 90% of those people delusionally believe what they have is worth more than it is.
Mm.
And now, is that a pride thing, right? Like, because, like, for me, it's not necessarily a production thing. It's, you nailed that. And you can look at a ton of movies, a ton of movie. I mean, one that instantly popped out in my mind is The Pursuit of Happiness. It's fucking Will Smith. And, you know,
Right.
the majority of the budget was matching fucking wardrobe to the 70s. Like, that was the majority of the budget for the film. That's it. That's it. And it was a phenomenal fucking film. It was an amazing fucking film. It didn't matter, right? And that's where I'm sitting here, and I look at this thing where it's like so many people can classify themselves in this kind of indie bucket, and like my thing is like, it's just another delusion. You are framing this space in a way that kind of confines you to that journey, right? And I wonder if, in again, my own opinion, that's how I see indie. And it's not that you're framing it that way and that I think you feel that way. I just think the general consensus is that once I'm indie, I'm indie. And I think that's also, you touched on that a little bit. That's also horseshit. You have no idea how many of the fucking mainstream films that you've watched have come from an indie setting where, yes, it might for have 3 months been on a circuit that you had no idea about, but
Yeah.
then it fucking blew up over the world. It's still an indie fucking film. And that's kind of the way that I look at us. And the one thing that I really wanted to say and kind of touch on in this episode, we're kind of getting down to the end here, but I think that's that's the thing. I think those kind of 4 to 8 week passion projects, like that's when burnout happens. And like, and I actually know quite a few people that have tried to produce one or two things, whether it be a film or a music album or what have you. And I won't say that the work was what it needed to be, but it wasn't bad. And
Mm.
if they had continued doing what they were doing, I could absolutely have seen where the potential could have taken them. That's what happens, right? People are waiting for that 4 to 8 week period so I can go have my existential crisis, because this fucking shit is hard. This shit is difficult. This shit is not, it's not fun sometimes. Like, you know, as much as we love what we do, like, it's like you said, when you are at the end of the day looking at the stats, Misfits, and you have to correlate, holy shit, I have about a 10,000 view gap over a 3 week period. And that's because I fucking didn't do shit because my mom died, or fucking I didn't do shit because my kid was born. And those things, me and Chris talked about this yesterday. It's funny. Those things I think are kind of like the defining trait between what will be successful and not. And it's not to sacrifice those things and say that you can't have those experiences or partake in life as well as what you're building, but they each definitively need to have their own ground.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
and that's the non-negotiable, right? Because when I'm here at the Misfits, like I told Chris this yesterday, this is my battlefield, you know, like this is my fight. And if I don't win, yeah, you know, you're on a fucking empty battlefield with a bunch of dead soldiers.
Mm.
It's not a validating fucking experience. So
Mm.
you'd much rather be in a fucking mead hall with your fucking warriors, you
Yeah.
know, and celebrating. And what I'd like to say is I think that where we're at and what we're about to show people and kind of this conversation is a really strong turning point for anybody in that space that's like, holy shit, I've done the work. It is quality. It is good work. Why why then keep doing it if I don't have the achievement?
Yeah.
It's that dumbass cliche. I fucking know, and it's fucking beaten like a dead horse. Fucking Morgan Freeman didn't become famous until he was in his fucking 40s. Oprah didn't fucking become famous until she was in her 40s. Martha Stewart, all of these fucking people. You can look at the line of failures that they've had in the path of success. What I think, again, is the defining trait for us is, do we choose for this to be our success? And same for you, Misfit. Whatever you are doing are you choosing for this? Is this one going to be your success? Because I think not only environmentally does it matter, it does matter the level of commitment that you do give this thing. Because as much as me and Chris have been at this for a year, just like I said before, there's been more than one moment that I have fallen down in places that could have very well tipped the scale. And that's a harsh reality that I think a lot of people need to look at. Are you doing as much as you could be to actually make something happen?
Mm. 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 And yes, yeah. Also, to sort of qualify that as well, it's the opposite is also true, because in the last year you've had more than one justifiable reason to say can't do this right now, and you haven't, and you chose this instead. And I guess maybe that's the lesson here for you and for Misfits at home is, cool, if you're not gonna tap out, then you got to commit, because the in between, the maybe sorta I'll play at it, is gonna fucking kill you and waste everybody's time.
Yep.
You know, so there's no shame in quitting, calling it, saying this isn't working for reasons, and making that choice. Shit, I did that the first time we tried to start a pod with the third person.
Yep.
But if you're gonna choose to commit, then you need to commit.
Yep.
You know, I guess it's the same in business. Obviously, you know, that's what's going to drive it when you're asking yourself, why am I doing this? In relationships, you know, it's, come on, that must hit all of you like a slap in the face. Like, how many of you, like, because you're afraid of saying no, this isn't working, kids, house, job, car, it's hard. Yeah. Like, so you're going to commit and go all the way, or are you going to play at it and have mediocre and lukewarm and maybe kind of it's tolerable, so it's okay. It's funny because after I'm going to tie it all together, because after I went on this date, I think the next day, Charms actually reached out to me and said, like, how's your Easter, blah blah blah, and I mentioned I had this bad date and sort of ran through the list, and she mentioned, and it's not the first time she has, she's like, look, when you look at modern dating and the mess that is like love and relationships, like, maybe you're just better off being single, you know? And look, logically, has a point. My response was, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but it feels like the coward's way out. Like, dating's hard, so I don't wanna, so I'll just sit it out. You know,
I mean, instinctively, I heard that as like, you have something worth protecting right now.
She mentioned that as well. I think she clarified and said, look, you know, it's better than, like, yeah, being in a shit relationship or whatever else, like, you know, your value and all those sorts of things. But I don't know, food for thought, Misfits. If you don't take anything else away from this sort of like, look at your career, look at your friendships, look at your relationships, look at your hobbies and your passion projects. Split it into split it into 3 columns. This is what I definitely don't want. This is what I definitely do want. And this is what I'm playing with right now. Right. And then figure out, if are those things in the columns where I want them to be? And if they're not, change them. You know, the whole point of this podcast from the very beginning was like B-sides of professional life. your work, your relationships, your interpersonal relationship with yourself. These things matter. So there you go. There's a template, TM, courtesy of Pro Misfits. Break it down like that.
Perfect.
Done.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
No. And before you even ask, no, I don't know what's coming next. And I'm not going to pull up the damn spreadsheet because it fucking comes up on my glasses and the Misfits can fucking see it. So just tell me.
All right. So coming up next, episode 6, talking about insecurities, Misfits.
Yes.
Personal insecurities, professional insecurities, all those sorts of things. We might have to bring in a guest because I don't have any insecurities. I'm supremely... No, I do. We all do. We'll probably get into them when you have a lot of them. But the point is can you identify what they are for you? And how do you manage those? And maybe identify some ones that you had earlier on that you have overcome. Maybe we'll talk about that. But it's probably going to be one of those personal, intimate little chats. So get ready for that. Brody, is there anything you can foresee sort of coming up for episode 6?
It's funny that you said you don't have any insecurities, because I was gonna say I don't know what mine are. You got
a week to think about it.
So I don't know. Yeah, I think like you nailed that. It's gonna be a personal chat. I think it's something that we do often where I personally haven't sat with this a lot. Like I haven't looked at what am I insecure about right now, and yeah, it's kind of pushing me in that direction, and it's also making me itchy. So I'm like, this episode might be one for the books.
Yeah, it's not generally a fun or comfortable conversation, and it's probably not a fun or pleasant conversation that like a lot of men have. Because traditionally men are bulletproof, right? Strong, silent type. You don't talk about insecurities. You don't have any insecurities.
Yep, and let's just put them out on the internet, and then we're talking about all this shit about going viral. This happens to be the fucking episode.
Yeah, right.
That's fucking crazy. Oh, thanks, world. Now all you know is my insecurities.
Hey, emotionally intelligent young man. On that note, Misfits, you can watch us for free. No? Yes? Watch us for free. Follow us for free and watch us build. I can't remember the catch line, but it's one of those. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can go to promisfitspodcast.com and you can find the link to Camp Misfit, where you can get all of the episodes, including Insecurities, 2 weeks in advance. You can get discounts on sexy merch like t-shirts that Brody is wearing, and all those sorts of things. You want to build your own podcast? We've got resources on the website. You can check it out and you can talk to us. Find us on LinkedIn, find us on Facebook. Pretty easy to do. In the meantime, I've been Chris.
I've been Brody.
And you stay classy, Misfits. We'll see you in the next one.